everybody. My name is Nathan. This is my lovely wife and girlfriend and best friend and baby mama, all in one, Charla. And so we are continuing an effort to serve other people by talking about some real life things that I think the best way to say it would be, these are the kind of things I wish that I had had more access to. And that's not to say I in any way suffered or I did without. That's not the point. The point is it's just helpful information. It's not so much that it's things you've never heard or profound or anything like that. It's just, I think it's helpful. And that's the goal of this At the Table series. We imagine sitting at our dinner table here talking about these subjects. Now, last week, my wife talked about the hardest thing about marriage for her, which was, if I remember correctly, she said being married to a man so impressive. A man who just, when he walks, his feet does not touch the ground. It's pure spirituality all the time. And I think the last thing, if I remember correctly, that she said was that the pressure of the prophet. What? That's not what you said?
No.
Oh.
I think I said somebody needs to pray more.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pretty
okay.
sure.
We talked about communication and the difficulty of communication, and in a lot of ways it kind of had an introductory feel, because honestly, we don't know what we're doing here either. This is purely just an attempt for us to help people, and we're not professionally licensed psychologists or psychiatrists. In our real lives, I'm a pastor, my wife is a pharmacist. We've done other things, our life experience is really broad. But that's pretty much what you should think about our daily lives. We have two amazing children who are much better versions of us than we will ever be. We love them dearly. And we just want to help. So let's get started. My wife took over last week talking about communication.
I did.
And it was very communicating, her communication. And I was almost communicated to death.
Yes,
and,
he was almost communicated to death. So rare
yes,
in our relationship.
True.
For that to be the case.
She was like, I'm not a communicator, and then she communicated nonstop.
Then I took over.
So I think the most difficult thing for me, and I'm not just saying this in my personal experience, although it is true in the personal experience. I think over 20 years of ministry, talking to people, helping
Can I
people.
interrupt? I actually have no idea what he's going to say, because this is the second part of the series. The first part was me talking about the most difficult thing in marriage. The second part is him talking about the most difficult thing in marriage. So this is his version of what's the most difficult thing in marriage. I don't feel like he explained that very well to you guys. So I'm sorry, this is me interrupting and communicating.
Back to the spiritual person.
I'm communicating.
Okay. So for her it was communication. I think, and again, just to finish what I was trying to say before I was so rudely interrupted. Inside joke, sorry. Was that this is my personal experience, but I think it's broader than that. I think it's a human thing, and that is this: the movement from a life that's focused primarily on me to a life that is focused primarily on we. And the reason why I think that is the hardest part about marriage is because it's not one and done. It's not as though, you make this decision at an altar and you say, I do, and then the band stops and then you have to pay for the flowers, and you get the idea. And the romantic part of it is kind of, fading, and now you're in life. You have kids, obligations, bills. The need to be a team and to prefer us over I never ends. And so this process in your life, imagine any possible scenario that you could face, any, good or bad, you pick. It's your day to dream, whatever possible imagine. In that scenario, you would still have trials of me versus we, of us as a team versus us as individuals. When people come together, now you guys know I'm a pastor, so I'm always going to focus on the spiritual. That's where I'm comfortable. When people come together, they are joined. Now, this is a spiritual idea. These two become one. More than that, it's a covenant idea. And so your two lives are purposefully, intentionally even spiritually, join together in this way of a covenant. And then you try to live that out. So like everything to do with a life of faith, there is the practical and then there's the spiritual. And so for me, the literal joining is the physicality of you being together. And yes, on one hand, that's obviously sex. Sex is a big part of humanity. It's a big part of your relationship with your spouse. I don't want to get into that today, although I'm sure we will get into it because my wife does not have enough good things to say about me. All right, shouldn't say that. Moving along. Edit that out. So the literal is the ordinary. Yes, the sexual, but also the financial, also where you're going to live, what careers you're going to pursue, what degrees you're going to get. That's the here and now of it. But that's just a small portion of who you are as a person. And that's a small portion of who your wife is or your husband is as a person. Now let's talk about the rest of this joining. You are also emotional beings. And your future best life is going to be in the integration of your emotional lives. You're also spiritual beings. Your future best life is going to be in the integration of yourself as a spiritual being. And even more importantly, you are not stuck in time. You are becoming. Just because you got married does not mean you stop becoming. In fact, I've counseled, my wife and I have counseled more than a few couples where when they got married, they were a great fit in a lot of ways. They really were. One of them kept becoming, and the other of them either, I don't want to say stopped becoming, or kind of went into a static mode, as though now, I've got my woman, I've got my man, and that's the end of that. This is not easy to describe. It's not easy to talk about because all of these subjects, these internal things, emotional, spiritual, you are becoming, they're all something all of us are reaching before it. It's almost like aspirational. It's like true north. You're never going to get to true north. You're just going to go as far as you can. And that example is shown even geographically. You're on this earth. You're following true north. But you can't ever get there because it is beyond this world. But all you can do and what you're called to do is go as far as you can until your true north is the biggest thing in your sky. And so this struggle from I to us is never ending. If bad things happen, you're going to have to decide and choose to choose the team and not the individual. If you win the lottery, your trials won't end. Your marriage struggles won't end. You'll still have to choose us over I. And the moment you stop doing that is when risks begin to grow in your life like weeds. So if bad things happen, say debilitating sickness, you're still going to have to choose us over I. It's just going to feel different. The details are going to be slightly different. You're still going to have to choose, or risks begin to grow. One of the most difficult things for people in a marriage to overcome, and now this isn't my opinion, this is statistically, one of the most difficult things is great tragedy. If you say the worst possible imaginative thing that could happen to any of us is the loss of a child. And those of you who are watching who have lost a child, I want to say to you that, first of all, even at a distance, your loss is devastating. There's no words. We pray for you and support you at a distance. We cannot carry your burden. But we support and we offer what prayer and what support we can. Most marriages fail to survive great tragedy like that. And the reason why is they still had to choose us over I. But they were different people. And they healed alone. They did not heal together. Now that part is not the statistical. That's what I think. They failed in that moment to choose us over I. They didn't heal together. They healed as individuals. And then on the other side of that healing, or maybe that's the wrong word, coping, the other side of that survival plan, they found out they were different people. They looked at each other and they were like, I don't know why I'm doing life with you. They did not heal together. They did not survive together. They both sheltered in place.
Right.
Not together. They did not shelter together. I will not act as though I have a solution to that, but I want you to see my point of bringing that up is to simply say whether good comes your way or bad comes your way, you're going to have to choose us over I. If one of you is a surprising success and you did not know that you were a rock star in your career, but all of a sudden you're making 6, maybe 7 figures and your spouse is stuck in a dead-end job, you're still going to be having to choose us over I. Right. If one of you has some success that's you discover yourself and you decide maybe in middle age you're going back to school, the marriage is going to have to choose us over I. So good, bad, young, old, you're going to have to choose us over I. Now, the storms change, the season of life change, but if you aren't doing that, then the weeds are growing through the cracks of your life. So let me give you real quick a few things. You guys know I try to be an organized thinker, and so my wife will always make fun of me about this. Here's...
Notice he has notes. Last week I did not have notes.
Yes, because she is so spiritual that the Spirit just moves upon her.
No, it's that he's so organized and planned.
She doesn't even have to pray like most of us. She just moves right into the Spirit right away. So here's one of the reasons. Let me give you a handful of reasons why.
Here we go with the lists again. Sorry.
I'm about to slap you in public. First of all, marriage will show you your limitations. Now, let me tell you a way you can avoid seeing your limitation is to live alone. Because if you're dating somebody and you see your limitations, you just can dump that girl and move on. The next girl will put up with you until she doesn't, then you can dump that girl and move on. If you're a woman, you don't have to face your limitations. You just can date until they see through your limitations, point them out to you, and you're like, that's it. The Spirit is moving me away from you. But if you stay with somebody, particularly if they're a good match for you and you don't need to dominate them, which is a different problem we'll talk about. If they're a good match for you, they're going to point out your limitations and you're going to have to face the music. And at that moment, you're going to have to choose us over I, and you're going to have to grow. The second thing is marriage will show you your lack of control. Now, dating won't. Dating, you just date them until they don't put up with you, then dump them and move on. Just let that be a word to you. But if you stick with somebody, they're not going to let you have control over everything. You're going to lose control. The third thing that marriage will do is it will force you to face your demons. People who don't know you, they'll believe all the lies you tell yourself. But someone who lives with you for a while, they will start pointing out that lie has been used and is worn down. You need to face there's more here than the narrative you're giving yourself. Marriage will make you face your demons. And sometimes your wife will be your demon. Just let that be a blessing. Sometimes your husband will be the demon in your life. And I'm just cutting up with that. But I want you to see how marriage is a test. It is going to stress you. The next thing, marriage will reveal your failures. It will force you. It will force you to face the fact that, particularly if you're well matched, that you tried that, didn't work out well, it's time for a reset. And that moment where you reset is actually the act of turning failure into success. That reset that you did. I promise you, the right spouse, the right husband, wife in your life will help you reset. It will be a blessing to you. Is there anything you want to hop in here and say?
I don't want to interrupt your notes.
Okay, moving along. So the last thing is marriage will force you to compromise. As long as you're single, you won't have to compromise. But marriage will force you to compromise. And I want to say something to you that may surprise some of you. Compromise is not a bad word. Compromise is how you humble yourself. Nobody gets everything they want. You have to compromise. You have to work one with another. I heard a hilarious joke, and I love this joke. I don't know why, it just cracks me up. It's funny. A husband and a wife are fighting over how many kids they're going to have. And she says, we're going to have 3 children. He says, no, we're going to have 2 children. She says, we're going to have 3 children. He says, no, we're going to have 2 children. She said, no, 3. He said, I tell you what, After the second child, I'm getting a vasectomy. She said, well, I'll tell you what, I hope you love that third child like he's your own. Isn't that a good joke?
That is a good joke. It's a funny joke.
So warning signs in your marriage that you are struggling to see life as a pair, and instead you're falling into the trap of seeing as an individual. You're failing at we, at us, and you are building castles around me and I. You're building defensive fortifications. I would say the biggest warning sign is that your marriage is primarily competitive. I have seen marriages like this that seem to work. I have. I'm going to let you be the judge of that. We're just trying to help. We are not trying to tell you what to do. You're going to have to sort that out. Some competitive marriages, I guess that works for them. I just want to say that's not what I want. I want my house to be a place of peace. I don't want to be in competition with my wife. I want the opposite. I want to cheer when she wins because I believe it's 51% my win. You see what I did there? Got to learn marriage math. I don't want her to be secretly disappointed when I succeed. I want her to cheer because she's like, 51% my victory. It's us over I. We are chosen to cleave together. Trying to use a King Jamesian word there.
You did good.
We're choosing to. We're holding together. We once were apart, but now we have created in our life, first of all, the physical, how we do life. And then we have created the aspirational. We're not just becoming individually. We expect to be better together than we would have been apart. That's not easy. I don't want to act like we always do it perfectly. That would be misleading. But that's the star in our sky. That's our aspirational true north. So if your fights always seem like they have a winner and a loser, that's a warning sign in your life. You're living competitively.
Right.
You are not compromising to include the other person's point of view, the other person's values and heart. The second thing is you have a very negotiating relationship and you use all the tools of negotiating. That means you don't tell them everything. You want to use what they would call in negotiation asymmetric information. I know more than you do, therefore I can win at negotiating. And when you're talking to your spouse and you're withholding all this information so you can win, I hope it works well for you, but that's a warning sign. It truly is a warning sign. Number 3, when your partner has a success and it makes you a little bit miserable, that's a warning sign. If you kind of happy for him, but at the same time you're like, I want my YouTube's channel to succeed too. I'm just having fun since it's a YouTube channel. Do you see what I'm saying? I'm not saying this isn't real. I'm not saying this isn't human. I'm just saying this is a warning sign. The next, you rarely compromise. Again, compromise is not a bad word. Compromise is how you live without being a jerk.
Right.
Next, you belittle each other. Not in a flirting relationship. Now, belittling one another can be a very flirtatious thing. Like, say that again, see what happens to you. I'm flirting. You see what I'm doing there? I'm going to come over there and you know what I mean? I'm not talking about flirting. I'm talking about belittling where you know how to hurt them and you get your shot in. And then you try to pretend like you didn't. I'm telling you, it's a warning sign. I'm not saying you can't work through it, but it's a warning sign. You give each other a lot of ultimatums. It's a warning sign. You are living your life as me against you. An ultimatum is a way to say you're on that side of the battlefield, I'm on this side of the battlefield. So it's like I told my wife last week, if you hit me one more time, ultimatums are a warning sign in your life. You should not be giving ultimatums. You should be trying to understand each other. Why do you feel that way? Help me understand. And lastly, I want to say this is the single most dangerous thing I've ever seen in a relationship. And if this is happening in your relationship, the statistics say you probably aren't going to make it. And that is you use contempt as a weapon. Where you find them contemptible. They disgust you. And you put it in your micro expressions, you put it in your body language, you put it in the way you live your life. But you don't try to walk across that no man's land of destruction and despair and actually come together. So that is the usness versus the I-ness, the we versus the me. I think that is the nonstop hardest thing about marriage. So I'm going to let my wife hop in here and just flow in the Spirit.
I think another warning sign, and it always comes back to communication for me, is always having to be right in an argument or a discussion.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Because if your point of view you think is the right one, and you hold to that, and it's sacred to you, and I am right and you are wrong, I think that is the absolute right. And he talked about that. But it is the absolute wrong way to approach a discussion, even if you have a very valid point and you're the one who brokered the argument, who brought it up, who made a big deal about it because something was really wrong. You felt like at the end of that conversation, it doesn't need to feel like I was right and I proved my point and I have been exonerated in this issue. It needs to feel like, how did we meet in the middle? How did his point get validated as well as my point get validated? How did we listen to each other? How did we communicate through that? I just think that's really important.
Right. It doesn't matter if you're right if your spouse ends up feeling like they have less value. It won't matter if you're right.
Right.
Because she can't lose without you losing.
Right.
So even if you're right, this is me versus we. If you're right, you're giving yourself that drug of how much you know and how good you are. But you gave her a last value. And so that's why you have to, that's, I think, how I would say the exact same thing.
I agree.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I love that you said we versus me. That I think that sticks because you definitely have to look at it. And you mentioned it several times and you were going through your talk about how you look at something. It's his win is my win. It's not, oh, well, he did something and we're in competition. It's always when he wins, that makes me look good too. It makes me look from the outside great, but it also makes me feel good. I'm proud of him. He is my person. You know, you have to be on each other's team to everyone else's exclusion. This matters most. This is the most important thing. It's not what your buddies think about it. It's not what your girls think about it. It's this. And it's learning how to be we instead of me. That's huge.
Yeah, I had a tremendous advantage of seeing it lived out in my mom and dad's life, truly. My mom is a fantastically loyal person. She'll be loyal to you even when she thinks you're wrong. And then later on she'll be like, no. But at that moment she was loyal to you. And my dad is highly, highly committed to develop other people. And so I saw that in them. And so I'll give you an example. When we were evangelizing, my wife was like, I want to go back to school because she had a music degree, but she wanted to do something in medicine. And the first thing was not, well, we can't do that. I just thought of what my parents would do, what my dad would do. And I was like, we'll make this happen. And so I'm like looking for things. And we started on the field, her going back to school doing correspondence. And this is before it was easy.
To clarify, when he says on the field, we were evangelizing and we were traveling in an RV full time, that we lived in an RV and traveled full time.
Yeah, doing special events for churches.
And there was not internet like there is now.
No, it was very hard.
It was.
They mailed her packets, and she went to local community colleges to proctor tests.
Yes.
But she didn't use that as an excuse. She had grit, and she pushed through that.
But he enabled me as well. He wanted me to succeed.
Oh, well, I'm taking all the glory.
Well,
just
I'm
give
saying,
me a minute. I'm going to bring it back around to me.
I'm sure you are.
But the point being is I had that modeled. I can't take credit for that. That I had that modeled for me, so it was natural for me. But now, the flip side of that is now, if I think about doing anything, I've done 7 businesses. Half of them were abject failures. And she never complained through any of it, other than, I was working too much, that kind of stuff. Because I don't know, I feel like that on your team, on your side, it is your best life. You should do it not because it's, okay, let me sound terrible here so you can talk bad about me later. let me talk about this selfishly. Yeah, you should do it because you're a Christian. Yeah, you should do it because Jesus said you should love your wife as Christ loves the church. Yeah, goody two-shoes, show up at church on Sunday, wear your bow tie. No, you should do it selfishly. Your best life is in that person's development. You should do it because it's stinking smart to do. And you will be happier if she's happier. And when you invest in them and they talk about going to school and you're like, my God, yes, I love me a woman with money in her pocket. I mean, make it happen.
Yeah.
They will feel like nobody. Okay, so when you grow up, nobody's on your team like mom and dad's on your team. You know what I mean? They will fight a crocodile for you. Your spouse should feel like that. Nobody's on your team like they're on your team. That doesn't mean you won't fight. That doesn't mean you won't get on each other's nerves.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you want to try something? You want to try another business?
Right.
Secretly, she's probably thinking, well, the last one was a huge collapse, you know? But on the outside, she's like, sure, if you want to do it, what else is that? You know? That's what I'm talking about. Your best life. It is in your interest to make your spouse, I'll get it, happy. It is in your interest to develop all their potential. It is in your interest. You should do it, yeah, because it's a good, godly Christian thing. But let me be more self-centered than that. You ought to do it because it's your best life. That's what I got to say about that. All right.
All right. So just this one little thing, you know, I just have
take
things
your
to
time.
say. No, I just want to say, when I first mentioned going back to school and he was all gung-ho about it, it shocked me because I was not expecting somebody to take on my dream. I was not expecting him to embrace what I wanted, especially at that time of our lives. We were so dirt poor, and it was not an easy thing to do. We couldn't. Okay. Yes. My joke is that we had to debate whether we bought hairspray or toothpaste. Toothpaste always won.
Not
just
all
in
the
case you're
time.
wondering.
Not all the time. Sometimes
No.
we had money, but sometimes it was bad.
It was definitely a poor stage in life, and so you know I think it shocked me because I'm like, okay, this is going to cost money. This is going to be, you know, there were obstacles, and he immediately started trying to fix those obstacles for me, and I remember that.
I saw that in my dad and in my mom. I have to give them the credit for
But
that.
it also made me feel good. I felt like he had confidence in me when I didn't have confidence in myself too. So little things that you can do for your spouse, you don't realize what that's saying to them or what that's doing to them, negative or positive.
Right.
It goes both ways.
Right.
Little things that you don't think anything about it can be building points, just building that person up and making them feel stronger and empowered and competent. All those things really, really matter. Your positive words, even your behind the scenes, let me do this for you. I did this for you. And not so you can get points, but so you can build them up. And that's the difference because it is we.
If they think they can run a mile, you ought to say, yeah, you can run too.
Yeah.
That unspoken sense of it's not just a gift to them, it's a gift to you. But that's enough for this time.
Yes.
So how do we end here? If you're in Charlotte area, we'd love to host you at First Church Charlotte. East side of the city, you can find us at firstchurchclt.com. We are a multi-ethnic, multinational, that's not the right thing to say, multi-ethnic, multi-congregation church. And we're not perfect, but we're close enough that you should give us a shot. All right, God bless. Have a great week.
Bye.